So I'm coming in late today, guys. First of all, welcome back, Amber.
Yeah.
I'm
Um,
back.
we
For better
we
or
did
worse.
we did really miss you.
Aw.
It was like, you know what it was like? It was like you left your kids at home for the first time and
Mhm.
forgot to lock the liquor cabinet.
Yeah.
That's,
And
that's
all
what
the
it was
liquor
like
is
when you-
gone or half filled with juice.
the first thing Amber says when she gets back after a holiday, the first message in our chat for this podcast is OMG ... press the flesh.
You're welcome.
You're
No.
welcome. You're
No.
welcome.
Made me
I'm
wildly
coming in a little bit
uncomfortable.
late. Yeah, I'm coming in a little bit late today because I have I'm finished like probably the hardest, longest section of the book.
Mhm.
And I've been spending a lot of time editing it, which means I don't have like new material I've been writing because I've just been like really firming up and mostly adding jokes. That's my writing process, is adding jokes to it. But at the same time, I've had a couple like not so good days where I haven't been feeling so hot. And so we thought that'd be kind of cool to talk about. So you guys have a story about, I think it's one of the students or somebody. We're going to change their name. Let's call him Joseph, but
Joseph sounds good.
you know who I'm talking about. I don't know who wants to start to tell the story about what's been going on.
Yeah, I mean, she's a stepdad. So Amber suggested this because she knew that, first of all, we struggled with everything that we had while she was gone. We got nothing left. Let's be honest about it.
Y'all left it all on the table.
Yeah, we're spent from too many podcasts without adult supervision. I mean, and that's the truth. After a while, I mean, you can only drink so much and eat so much pizza and Twizzlers before your tummy hurts. So we're in the tummy hangover right now with Amber back. But Amber mentioned, Joseph, our OTA student, Online Trainer Academy student, and just sort of the concept of the ups and downs, really just the normal ups and downs of entrepreneurship, right?
Right.
I think, Jonathan, I think that you shaved your beard, by the way. Did you shave your beard? It's just like,
and got a haircut. Thank you for noticing.
Okay, all right, nice.
Let's talk about Joseph though. Let's
Okay, I'm sorry.
let's get into
Joseph, because we talk about sales psychology a lot, and when we talk that, we immediately think about the psychological effect our methodology has on clients. But I think there's a sales psychology to being in sales, and the psychological effect of being an entrepreneur who sells things for a living.
It's huge.
It's a big deal.
We manage our sales team because we have a sales team, and part of what you have to do when you manage a sales team is number one is maintain conviction in the product. And so we have a thread on Slack with wins, with student wins, that's posted every single day. And our sales team will look at that thread of student successes every single day before they go and do their sales calls, because they have to have conviction in the product. And if they don't, that comes through. You could be saying the same words as somebody else, and you could be believing it or not believing it. And that there's very much ebbs and flows in that every single day. And so, you might have had like perhaps a hard conversation with a client, let's say, and all your other clients might be doing fabulous. But you often don't hear about the good stuff, do you? You only hear about the bad stuff, and then that draws on you because we all focus on the bad stuff. I could get 50 positive messages from somebody, and then I get one person who doesn't even know me who calls me an asshole. I think I'm an asshole. That's just how we work as humans. But it's important to maintain your conviction in your own product. And that can be really, really hard when you're promoting yourself with these day-to-day fluctuations. So one of the things that we do is that. The second is we maintain morale. And so we actually do every single day, they report on their habits and their physiology, just how they're feeling. Did I take care of myself today? Did I exercise today? Did I go for a mental health break today? And they actually report on that. They give themselves a score out of 10, and they report basically those things. And it's not us saying like, this is what you should do or this is what you shouldn't do, but that again affects what they're doing. That affects the morale, that affects how they feel. And then the final piece of it is we actually have a psychologist that we hire that is available for our salespeople whenever they want it. And I just think more companies should have mental health support for their people, but for a lot of reasons, but also just because it, like, if you want your people to perform really well, it's really, really important. So this is like how we help our sales team. But I think about this in context of you. If you are, like most people that's listening to this, if you are your own sales team, understand that there's going to be some days where you're going to kind of feel down on yourself. Well, holy hell, it's hard to go. So do you have a folder of wins? Do you have a folder of nice messages that people have sent you about your services? That might be a really useful thing to build.
Which you should have anyway. Like, not even just for this, but like for sales in general, and like sharing stories and what have you. Every time that you get a positive message, screenshot it, put it in a folder. So obviously for what John's talking about, but in general as well, it can be helpful to share stories for your sales.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah,
100%. And so, so Joseph was feeling down. What's the context? I mean, we don't have to give away who it was.
Yeah.
But what's the context? Like, why was he feeling
so?
Because you said that there was a period where he was like revving on all engines, and now he's kind of in a bit of a valley, I think is
yeah. So for Joseph, he was kind of like, he was struggling, and then he hit like this really great high, like everything, he's getting new clients, his current clients are doing great. And then all of a sudden, like the fear that we all have of like everyone's going to collectively quit at the same time.
Yes.
Right. Although that's not technically what happened. That's kind of what it felt like, because he had like 2 or 3 people like drop off at the same time. Right. And it just caused this devastation. Right. And now he's questioning, should I be doing this? And so,
Everything.
yeah. And so he's, he had a nice chat with his wife, and they've, decided to give it some more time. And so she tried to pump him back up, and, Ren and I are chatting with him as well. But these peaks and valleys, that happen, and, you ride those highs, and then that crash down when something that, happens. It's going to happen. People quit. You have a bad day. You make a mistake. Valleys happen, and so finding a way to make it through those and get back up there.
I think this is where it's really purposeful as senior coaches, if that's the word for it, people that have experience. I think is really where it's helpful. What I try to do is I try not to tell a person what I think they should do. I try to tell them a story about what I went through, right? I try to give them, the opportunity to learn from an experience I had, rather than suggest explicitly what I think they should do in any given situation. And I'll just kind of, hey, did that make sense to you? Do you see what happened in the context of my story? Because rarely is there a specific technique issue that's going to circumvent the challenge. I mean, it's just a normal thing that you go through. Eventually, hopefully, you build your business to the point where 2 or 3 people doesn't represent 65% of the total clients that you have. That's another issue here. But it still feels awesome.
It sounds like with this guy, it's not. But even if it doesn't, it still feels horrible.
Awful.
Like we had 2 payment disputes come in the last 3 weeks. God, I don't remember the last time we had a payment dispute. And so basically what a payment dispute means is somebody calls their credit card company, the bank, and they say, hey, I don't recognize this charge. And the bank goes to, in our case, Stripe, and Stripe charges us like $15 or $25 or something like that, withdraws the money, and then we can fight the dispute and say, no, this is actually a legitimate charge or not. And both disputes were, they didn't recognize the charge, right? Like they thought that they didn't recognize what it was. And we had 2 come in like 3 weeks, and I was like, shit, do people hate me? Do people hate? Meanwhile, I was like, how many sales did we make in the last 3 weeks? Right. And also, both of these disputes actually were for sales made one was in January, one was in February of 2022. So in actuality, what happened was that these people, it's tax time. And they finally looked through all their statements and they said, I don't recognize what this thing is. Meanwhile, they're both very legitimate charges, of course. And one of them, like, we fought it, and the person immediately, I guess the bank sent the information that we sent into the customer, and the customer said, yeah, no, that's right, I made a mistake, and withdrew. The other one we haven't heard back from. But I mean, how many sales do I make in a year? It's actually kind of funny when I export the PayPal and the Stripe spreadsheets, CSVs, for a bookkeeper at the end of the year, because there's tens of thousands of sales. And meanwhile, I get 2 disputes and I'm like, oh no, you know, this is just the stuff that plays on your mind. But I don't know, there's somewhere that I want to take this, and it's a bit of a kind of tangent, but I do like the idea of talking about this. Look, there's uptime, there's downtime, but still, I want to take this. Is there anything else you want to add with Joseph? Because I want to take this to kind of a conversation about metrics that matter and metrics that don't matter, and how metrics that don't matter are usually the metrics that drive us nuts and make us feel like we're failing. And so I want to take it there, but we can keep talking about the situation with Joseph if there's kind of more info that you feel like you can share without kind of outing who he is.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing to add as far as context is his story, but I think what would be helpful is to briefly touch on, like, not just focusing on the metrics, but like getting through that, right? Because there's right. Logically, you know, these things, but how do I actually get there so it doesn't mess me up and take me off course? And so I think having a quick chat around that might be helpful.
So what do you think?
I want to jump in right there. A couple of things. One thing from the coaching side, what I try to do, and what I always try to do when I was managing sales people in multiple offices in my previous life, I try to, when I get into a one-on-one situation where I get the opportunity to coach this person up, I want them to walk away from the exchange feeling as if they learned something today that had they known it tomorrow or yesterday, it'd be so different. Like, if I can give them a good tactical technique nugget, it may or may not make a huge difference, but I want them to walk away with the feeling of, okay, I gained some information that could have shifted.
So what would you put here? Give me something like tangible. What would you put here?
Here's what I look at. When someone's struggling with sales, I look at really a few simple things. Number one, are you good at, and it's 4 C's, but number one, do you know that you have a solid idea of who you're talking to specifically? The only one of these 4 things can be the breakdown. Number two, if you do have a solid idea of who they are, do you know exactly how to engage in language with these people? Like, are you well enough immersed that you know you're not turning your population off the way that you talk about things? Number three, are you able to ask enough probing questions to get them interested enough to have a conversation with you? Like, are you communicating effectively enough for them to say, yes, at the very least, I'd like to have a conversation about this? And then number 4, obviously, when you have a conversation, do you understand well enough the balance of listening to talking to allow them to decide that they need to enroll in this because you're the obvious choice? See what I did there? So that's the first thing. I'm looking at technique. The second thing I'm looking at is what we're probably about to get into, and that's the metrics.
So technique, though, I mean, technique, the way that I heard you talk about it there is basically like a customer, a client, they're always thinking about whether this is important enough for them right now. You know, if you were to ask them and say, hey, you know, is your health important to you? Yeah, of course it is. But then you watch what people actually do. And for the most part, unfortunately, people don't act like their health is all that important to them. And so your job largely as a coach is to show people and paint a vivid enough picture so that they realize just why it matters, just how important it is to them at that point. And if you don't do that, you're always going to risk that person basically just having other shit come up in their life that's going to take priority, because we all have a lot of competing priorities in our lives. And it goes back to what we speak about with habits, which are, when you build habits, you have to build habits that are going to work on the bad days, not build habits that are going to work on the good days. Because if they work on the bad days, they're also going to work on the good days. If you build habits that only work on the good days, inevitably you're going to have bad days, and it's going to fall off the tracks. And so, are you doing this for that person, knowing that there are going to be bad days? This is a huge problem. I wouldn't call it a problem, but this is something that we navigate a ton, Amber, with how we've designed Quick Coach, the free software that we built for fitness and nutrition professionals, because we know that coaches have to navigate good times and bad times with clients. And so we've built the system so that it beautifully navigates that. And it makes it easier for the coach and makes it much more fluid for the person. Not having a calendar is an example for that, using the what comes next system. Because we know that there's no way over the course of 3 months a client is always going to hit their 4:30 p.m. workout on Tuesday. There's just no goddamn way that that's going to happen. But they're going to do the next workout. And so the system needs to be intelligent enough to adapt to the inevitable ebbs and flows of a client's life as well. The problem, of course, is that coaches like to build things beautifully. Coaches like seeing things that look perfect with these perfect 90-degree angles. But that isn't how folks use them. There's a concept in city design called desire paths. You guys ever heard about these things? You might have heard me speak about it.
Yeah.
When you have, yeah.
So,
when you're walking down the street and you're on a sidewalk, wherever you are, sidewalks are basically always a 90-degree angle. They're a right angle. We don't walk in right angles. And so what happens? Inevitably, somebody cuts the corner from the sidewalk and tramples the grass and forms what's called a desire path. So the system is built to be perfect and to optimize the space. What they haven't done as they're designing this pathway, though, is they haven't accounted for how humans actually walk. And so humans trample the crap out of the grass and don't actually use the last little bit of the sidewalk that's a perfect right angle. Whereas intelligent designers now are often, what they're doing is they're actually they're letting people use spaces, and then they're building pathways based off of where people are already trampling the grass. And then they're just building that pathway. It's the same kind of thing with how people design fitness or nutrition programs a lot of the time, and where they run into trouble is they want to create this beautiful periodized, whatever, 3-month program that's just perfect, right? This thing just flows to the next, and then inevitably nobody ever is able to follow this thing all the way through. And you have to design whatever you're designing, whether it's a fitness plan, whether it's a nutrition plan, whether it's a city, you have to design it with leakage in mind. And so we designed Quick Coach with leakage in mind. And I think that is actually, if you were to ask me, nobody's ever asked me this, but people actually do ask me this, but I don't give this answer because I don't have an opportunity to give like a nuanced answer on social media. And I can't say this unless it's like a nuanced answer. But if people were to ask me, they're like, what do you think is the number one differentiator between the Quick Coach software and all of the other tools that currently exist? I would say Quick Coach, when you're using it, you recognize quickly that it is obviously built by people who have trained tens of thousands of hours of clients, because it's built with leakage in mind. So it's not built to be perfect. right?
So I had a aha moment there. So like a lot of times when we see other software companies that offer training software, we'll see, trainer software built by trainers for trainers, right? But what we do is we build it for their clients and actually what their needs are versus what the trainer wants. So we have that piece of it, obviously the things that they need, but if you look at like our software group, what they want is not always conducive to what their client needs. And so to me, that's a really big kind of differentiator there.
That's a damn, I'm gonna throw that on the sales page.
That's a
Training
good
software
point.
built by trainers for their clients
Mm-hmm.
whose lives are messy as all hell.
Yep.
Because your plan, you want to see your, and I get this. Like when I build a fitness plan, even for myself, I'm like, oh, this thing is beautiful. And I want to lay it out so nicely on a calendar, and it's so nice and it's so perfect. And look at this. Hey, everybody, look at this. I just want to take a screenshot and share it on the internet. Meanwhile, what I don't tell you is that behind the scenes, nobody, including myself, has ever followed that damn thing perfectly all the way through. And if I don't, in building it, keep that in mind, that it's not going to be followed perfectly all the way through as I'm building it, and design into it elements of leakage so that inevitably when unpredictable things happen, because they always do when you're dealing with real humans with real lives, the thing adapts. But we run into this issue, don't we, Amber, where trainers, because it's a weird problem to have, because we're building a tool, we're building a B2B tool, but we're building a business to business tool for the business owner to serve their customer. And so ultimately, if we've built the best product that's designed by the end customer of our users having the best experience. The problem, though, is that in this case, in a lot of ways, the end customer having the best experience is not something that the trainers necessarily recognize, because I'm not saying this well, but you kind of get what I'm saying, because what they want is often different from the best experience for their clients.
Mm-hmm.
Now they do want the best experience for their clients, 100%. But what they like to see on their end is different in how it's designed for the best experience for their clients. It's a weird problem to have, and it's a problem that we certainly have.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a solution. Do you? Talk about it on a podcast and hope that helps people understand better.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about it till we're blue in the face. People aren't gonna listen. It's like every time we write something, I'm like, oh, that'll help, and they still don't see it.
Yeah.
It's just human nature.
What'd you say to me the other day? You're like, oh, we should build guides to
on
help people
Facebook.
onboard better.
I'm
in the
hoping if we
Facebook
just
group. And I'm like,
put it
that
all
will make
over
a
the
difference.
place, if we put it just everywhere, maybe it'll help the one person. I don't know. Make me feel like I'm doing something. Okay.
Well, but if you remember when I was first designing the thing, I mean, my filter going through it was, I want to design something where where the majority of people don't need to look at a single tutorial video. And I do think we've accomplished that. I really do. I mean, look, there's going to be some users that are more technologically savvy. There's going to be some who aren't. But I could give that thing to a lot of people and just say, I'm not telling you anything about it. Create an account and figure out how to send me a workout. And the vast majority of people would be able to very quickly. I mean, you would like click around, right? Like, what do you do when you go in somewhere? You click around. You're like, oh, oh, that's cool.
It'd be
right?
fun to like have like 100 like random people do it and like time them and see what the average time is. That would be kind of fun.
Yeah. I mean, I do think we've accomplished that. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it doesn't mean that we're not going to provide tutorial videos and demos and stuff. We've got a massive library of that, but I provide them, but I don't think most people need them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's always like nuanced stuff like, hey, I'm trying to do this very specific thing. And for example, somebody's using it for group exercise and wants to be able to drop in the same plan to, I don't know how many people she's doing. This is a message in a Facebook group today. I don't know how many people, so 20, 30 or something like that, wants to be able to drop in the same workout to all of those people and have it published for them. Like she doesn't want to edit them afterwards. And our general flow, it's a lot of like weird little decisions, but our general flow is that when you create a plan, most of the ways that you create a plan, when you send it to a client, it's actually in drafts for that client. It's not published in that client, because we assume that if you take something that's built for another client and you're like, yo, this workout for Sue was great, I want to give it to Kevin. You assume that Kevin is not going to do the exact same thing as Sue. You're going to use that basically as a template, and then you're going to make a couple adjustments. And then, so we assume that with our user flow. Well, that's not the case all the time. And this is an outlier case where you want to build one program and you want to give it to 20 Sues and Kevins at the same time. And so in this case, I was like, oh yeah, here's the flow. Here's exactly how you do it like that.
Yep.
And can just shoot a video. So there's examples like that. I want to talk about deep fakes. This shit's getting scary.
Yeah.
I saw a video the other day, and it was an advertisement for some bullshit supplement. And it was I don't know if it was real or not. Okay. Let's assume it's not. Let's assume it was an example, but you can see how easy this was. So it was some bullshit like testosterone booster supplement. And it was a conversation between Joe Rogan and Andrew Huberman talking about how great this supplement and this brand was. And then, of course, the rest of the video shows you how to go on Amazon. And literally, Joe Rogan is talking to you. He's like, just go to Amazon and type this in. And what you'll see is it'll come up right at the top. You can see there's some reviews on it. That's how you know that it's great. And it's Joe Rogan's voice and his face in a conversation with Andrew Huberman talking about a supplement that's clearly bullshit. And nothing about it is real. And if you were really looking at it like deeply, you might be like, it looks like it might be a little bit off. But God, if you saw that as an ad, you'd think it was real. Most people would think it was real. I mean, if the heading of what I saw it on was not like, look at this deep fake, I would have thought it was real. And what this tells me is that, number one, I don't think people are prepared for just how much fake stuff is going to be coming. I really don't.
I mean, they see it now and they don't get it, and let alone deep fakes. I mean, Instagram's full of it.
I mean, there are Instagram accounts, like if you look up thismodelIsNotReal.com, there are Instagram accounts that are fake models. And now it's like social experiments. Yeah. Where, the community votes on like the AI generated avatar picture of like this woman who doesn't exist. And then that gets posted to Instagram. But I don't think people are prepared for just the influx in content everywhere that's going to come. I don't think people are prepared for stuff like this conversation between Joe Rogan and Andrew Huberman, where you are not going to be able to trust any video of anybody promoting anything anywhere. And I also don't think people are going to be able to trust the I don't know the right word for it, but I saw this other thing with this guy. It was like a thank you video for purchasing a thing. And it was the same type of idea. This guy just like basically filmed a video and he was like, hey, what's going on? This is John. Hey, Len, this is John. Thank you so much for purchasing this, man. I hope you love it. It's going to help you with this. And it looks like a personalized video. Well, the reality of it is I filmed this video once and then AI cuts out my lips, puts in new lips saying a new name every single time, automatically generated going into it. Now, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. And this type of thing already existed where you could get an email and there'd be like a whiteboard behind the person and it would be like, hey, John, and it would automatically take the name of the person from the unique data in the person's email CRM system. and it would put it into the picture. That already existed. But I do think, aside from the fact that we're not going to be able to trust any celebrity endorsement anywhere ever, I do think that overwhelming content is going to be a mass, like to the point where it's you creating content on social media is going to become so irrelevant so quickly that it's going to shock a lot of people how fast this is going to happen. And then it's just going to become the new normal. It's like when the iPhone came out. It was just like, oh, all of a sudden this month, every single person I see is not talking to other humans and has their face on the screen all day, every day. Like, I finished my workout today at the gym. I am in a small town in Mexico full of basically yogis and surfers who are here basically to get like fresh air and drink like fruit smoothies. So this is a very unique like gathering of like humans, right? People who like want to be outside and be active. And I'm at the outdoor like kind of jungle gym like CrossFit place. And I just finished my workout, which was brutal. God, yesterday was 8 sets of 10 reps of squats with 25 V-ups and 200 meters in between each set for time.
Nah.
Pass.
Hard pass, right?
Hard pass.
I'm a little bit tender today. But after the workout today, I looked around, and including my dumbass, everybody who was still there were 5 people who were still outside. Everybody was on their phone within about a minute and a half of the workout ending. And this is like, I mean, I can show you a picture of where I am. Like, this is like people who you would not expect to be on their phones. Now, I mean, yeah, we're like exercising in the sun in the morning. Like, I get that, which is great. But holy shit, man. And so, you know, it's the same type of thing. It's just going to become so normal that you don't trust anybody. And the stuff like with the thank you video, I mean, dishonest is the word that comes to mind. I don't think it's necessarily that bad, but I think it's a very slippery slope. And what I do think is that it is going to lead to wide scale distrust.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when that happens, like the pendulum of just people not trusting anything or anybody is going to swing so far to one side so quickly, so soon, that I think the value in going out of your way to do things that are honest and trustworthy and like connect with people as humans and everything like that, I think is just going to be so much greater, simply because the world is going to go that way. Like people, don't get me wrong, I think people are going to figure out this technology, this deep fake, this AI thing. I think it's going to be a couple years where it's going to be buckshit crazy, where it's just going to be so stupid what you're going to see there. Already the new get rich quick scheme is teaching people how to basically cheat with ChatGPT. Like, you know, 4 years ago it was become a life coach. 3 years ago it was day trade stocks. 2 years ago it was crypto. Like, this year it's become a basically AI like content creator.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, and so I think about metrics that matter a lot. And I'm thinking about metrics that matter a lot these days versus just metrics. And it's this idea of like, I think social media, I think technology, they're useful tools that help you like amplify your ability to connect to others. And I do think that they're really important to leverage. but I don't think you build your business with them. I think what you have to do increasingly is build your business away from them somewhere, like build something substantive, like build something that actually is useful or valuable or has depth to it. And then you use those tools to amplify what you have, versus the opposite, which is the path that many are taking now, which is they're thinking that they're going to build something that matters on social media using this technology. And I just don't think that that's going to happen for the vast majority of them. I said this, I came across a piece of content that I wrote 3 years ago. And it said, my biggest fear is that 2 years from now, the vast majority of people are going to wake up, that work in health and fitness are going to wake up, and they're going to think about all of the hours they spent creating reels, creating social media content, and they're going to realize that they actually created nothing, and they actually did nothing to build up themselves and move themselves forward and add value in any real way. And I forgot that I'd said that, because I'm going to say that again now. And I think, unfortunately, I think it came true. I think there's a lot of people who are waking up right now and they have social media accounts and they've been spending ungodly amounts of time creating content on their social media accounts. And they're realizing just how little all of it matters, because the metrics on these accounts, the metrics that social media companies show you aren't metrics that matter. They're metrics that make you want to use social media more. That's why they show you these things. And so what I question is, the question that I'm asking is, can we figure out metrics that do matter? For example, what's a metric that potentially matters? Well, if I own a local gym, or even if I don't, and I want to host a seminar, and I just say, hey, what's up? I'm John. I'm going to host a seminar. You want to come? How many people would show up? That's to me, an example of a metric that matters. How many people like deeply trust you and know that you're going to add value to them? I mean, there are folks out there right now, that people that I know well, that are building up huge followings, but they're not really like, say that they're not adding value. They're obviously adding some value because people are following them, but they are becoming increasingly radicalized by their audience. And it's a kind of a spiral. And they're also like kind of jumping on whatever trend is coming out. And so I've been like picking fun at this about like, I have no desire to sit in a bucket of ice. You know, it's like just because it like makes for a good like social media post, like I'm not going to sit in a bucket of ice.
You're like a mom. Like, oh, if your friends were going to jump off the Brooklyn Bridge, would you?
Right. It's like, well, that's cool, bro. That last month you decided to jump in buckets of ice, and this month you decided not to breathe from your mouth because nose breathing is better, and next month you're going to do something else. It's like, I get what you're doing. I get it. But what are you ever like actually building or adding? And this is just something I'm thinking about a lot, because I'm spending a lot of time writing this book. Mm-hmm. And I'm spending less time building content on social media, and my social media accounts have not grown as much. And so I'm like, okay, well, like, is this book then going to be substantial enough that it's going to basically add a lot of value, because I feel like I'm actually creating something that matters with it?
I've got to interject here and say that I believe it will. And here's why. You know, I've been very I've been very diligent about avoiding the minutia of our industry in every facet of my business. In every way that I operate, I avoid the minutia. Someone will ask me, do you think a 9-grain bread is better than a wheat bread? Right. And I'll say, well, tell me about your sleep.
Yeah.
Right. Because this shit don't matter. Right. I'm never going to get on one of those trains. But when you get on the minutia train, the minutia express, you get a little attention for a little while. Right. You're going to get more attention. If you talk to people about, it's really important to drop your core temperature at least 2 degrees to get a great night's sleep. And if you do that, you may get your deep sleep up to 30%. And I'm asking, do you go to bed before 10? Right? I don't want to talk about that, because when the minutia train passes by and everyone's gotten their 5 minutes worth of attention, you know what'll matter again? How you're able to manage it for my population, how you're able to manage your household, and maybe gets up an extra 30 minutes of sleep, right? That's always going to be a thing for my population, moms over 30, by the way, right? And whether they have fucking sea moss or MHT oil or MCT oil, or what was the other thing that was popular?
So why do they dwell? Why do we dwell on those things? Because I mean, I even look at some of those things sometimes, and I have to like snap myself out of that minutia. So because I'm just like, God, this is stupid. Right. It's so obviously not what matters, and yet it captures our attention so much more than it does. Is it because we can see it? Is it because we can measure it? Is it because it is way easier to debate about a whole bunch of stuff that we kind of know doesn't matter that much? Because then we don't actually need to commit.
Right. There you go.
Because committing's hard. Because committing to something, committing to a change, committing to a habit, committing to something is hard. It's easier not to commit.
So I've got 2 answers. On the coach end, on the influencer end, on the social media star end.
Well, on the influencer end, we know why it is. It's just because they're just fucking pandering to whatever
gets attention.
Like hot and in vogue that
day. It gets attention.
Sure. But here's the scary shit about that, is that not only does it get attention, and so people will often start and they'll say, oh yeah, this gets attention, so I'm going to talk like this, but it radicalizes them. And then they become more like that person. I know people who I used to really enjoy their company, and I know that they didn't quite believe or not believe some of the things that they're saying. They kind of like were thinking about it, but they put out a message about it one day. Right. And then they get a big response. And then they put out more messages like it because they get a big response and become addicted to that response. And then it starts to change them.
Now it's life.
And they've become that much more radical. And they were not like this before. They were a very reasonable person. And there's somebody in mind specifically who I just don't talk to anymore. I just can't. Because he's so obsessed with his social media growth, and it has turned him into such a right-wing conspiracy nut job. And I know that he doesn't even really believe these things, but he puts out the messages because they get the biggest response.
Right.
And he's so obsessed with his social media that he actually doesn't build any kind of a reasonable business off of the back of it. He has a coaching business. It's a fine one. It's not a very good one, but with his numbers on social media, like, you give me the numbers that he has. If they were valuable accounts, here's where the metrics matter. Because if I had the numbers that he has in a way that they actually trusted and believed in me, which these people don't. They just like hearing somebody on the internet who looks like they're popular, basically talking about how everything that's happened in the last 2 years is a scam. Mm-hmm. And you should never breathe out of your mouth now for some reason, because that's somehow related. And it's, and
oh, Jesus.
if I had that, I mean, I could build a coaching business, tens of millions of dollars easily, but he'll never do it. He'll never do it because it would force him to stop for at least a period of time the aggressive growth plan in his already huge social media accounts. I mean, I'm at the point now, like, what did you say? How many Instagram followers did you say? One of you guys said that on an account, 100 and something that I have now.
170.
Right. So like, I don't think I've gained like a net new followers in a few weeks. That's cool, man. It's a shit ton of people that's already there, dude. Like, you know, it's this idea. It's like, oh, you know, we got to be after growth. It's like, well, you know, if I don't grow again, like I'm pretty good. So, so like what, at some point you've got to make a decision where you're going to build something that is useful, that is tangible, that is substantive, that adds value, that helps solve real problems, that stands out. And what we have seen is that when you do that, well, social media grows much faster because then people start to look for you there. I don't know. Talk to me, Wayne.
It grows with a greater base of reality. You know, social media.
That's a good
money.
point.
Yeah.
You skip over all your best points.
Well,
with
I mean,
greater base of reality.
Yeah.
Like dwell on that. Like, what does that mean?
Because what you're dealing with, it's the neighbor who has, and I'm not trying to pick on you, John, I swear, it's the neighbor who has the Tesla, the 3-story split level home, the private label garments, and they are 99% maxed out on credit cards, right? Yeah, right. That's not wealth. That's an indication of the concept of wealth, right? So social media,
you're basically saying that like the social media influencer that I was referring to before is basically like the dude popping bottles at the club.
Pretty much. It's the new popping bottles at the club, but nobody ever gets to see what a lame you are in the club because you're controlling. You're working all the cameras. It's your own personal reality show. Present what you want, but you don't have a base of. There are many ways to get a large amount of following on social media. There are few ways to be able to mobilize a large following on social media. Right. And the only way to do that is to have your following rooted in some reality. Right. You know, we could all act a certain way to get a certain following. And then what? Right? Like most people haven't thought past the influence, right? So I want to, you know, hey, give me a follow. Why? Like, why would I give you a follow? Because I'm on social media. That doesn't qualify. I talk about fitness. Don't care. So do I. Like most people have no idea why they actually want influence over people because the actual insinuation of influence is enough. Like, I know why I want people to follow me because I'm going to help moms rationalize what's often irrational on social media. I'm going to affect generations of their family. If I can work with you for 6 to 12 months, I can affect the way that your grandchildren live, right? I know that 100%. That's why I want influence. Most people want influence just to have it, right? And maybe something else will happen accidentally. So if I get to this amount of followers, maybe, you know, the local cheese fondue place will let me do fondue. Like they just sort of backing in. I think
a few years ago that would have been a perfectly reasonable thing, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think what's coming down the pipeline is going to blindside a lot of these people.
Absolutely,
because I think that I mean, holy shit, it's going to get noisy, man. It already is.
We're about to see the influence bubble burst. Same way the .com bubble burst. People are going to be on their asses like, what next? And they never had any. Yeah, they never had any value anyway. So there's not going to be a
podcast, Amber.
So that
Are we about to see the influencer bubble burst? Question mark. It's a good title.
yeah, because they don't have anything of substance underneath the fluff. You can get away with fluff for a
But
long time.
even if they do, even if they do, how much time are they spending on that versus how much time? So like, here's where I struggle. Okay.
Yes.
Here's where I struggle. Thank you, MC Tuck Tuck, for the support. Here's where I struggle.
Oh man.
I don't want to be on social media. I don't mind it, but it's just not where I want to spend my time. Like I said, I'm not upset about being there. It's not like I'm coming out and I'm like, I hate it. Like I'm not upset about being there. It's just like, if you ask me like where I want to spend my time, that's just like not it. Like, I want to give you like a bro hug with 2 customary back taps. Not 3. Don't give me that 3rd tap. I got a buddy here in Mexico who holds onto his hugs for an extra second too long. And like
2
it's awkward,
Mississippi's
bro.
max.
Yeah.
We all know it's
Facts.
like, I get that
Facts.
I'm in kind of a spiritual hippy dippy little town, but like
No, we don't.
kind of weird, right? It's like he does like 4 or 5 Mississippis. It's too much.
Yeah, the difference in those 2 seconds is greeting versus molestation, John. Like, I don't like it.
Very
It's-
long seconds.
You're treading on the side of violating my personal space.
Next time when he hugs
So-
you like that, just call out Mississippi's. 1
Yeah,
Mississippi,
one,
2
two,
Mississippi.
two.
I
See what
should do
happens.
that. I'll probably see him tonight.
Yeah.
So
That's fucking awesome, man.
he's European. I don't think he'd even understand it. Anyway, here's where I struggle. I struggle because I want to write books about things that I think are important. And I want to create products and build businesses that are any combination of like valuable, fun. Basically, I'm entering in a phase of my life where I just want to create things that I feel like should exist in the world. Like, I felt
you
like
go.
Quick Coach should exist in the world.
There you go.
And so I wanted to create it. And whenever we decide to stop traveling, I'm going to build a local gym by me, not because I need to make money with a local gym, because I just think that there needs to be a really good gym in my neighborhood. That's what I want to exist in my world. And I know what I want to have is I want to have basically a launching pad for those things, right? So I don't care about the launching pad as the launching pad. But I know that I want to do all of these interesting things, and I'm going to want to continue to build all these interesting things. But what I struggle with is the amount of time it takes to build and foster this launching pad detracts from my ability to
There you go.
do these interesting things. And what I've had to do, and I'm still working through it, but I feel like I've kind of gotten into a good space now. What I've had to do is effectively just become okay with some trade-offs.
Mm-hmm.
For example, this podcast I really enjoy doing. And I enjoy doing this podcast because I like talking to you guys, because I think that we have a increasingly good like rapport. I think we bring different opinions and backgrounds, and it's really, really useful. I also think it's really valuable to have an opportunity to just go deeper into a lot of these subjects.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a reason that I was 100% all in on Instagram for a full year, more than that, before we launched the podcast, because I needed Instagram to be a launching pad for the podcast. Like, it's just really hard to grow a podcast otherwise. And from this podcast now, our team takes it and cuts up a whole bunch of videos, and like, I don't even look at them. Like, Amber said to me the other day, she's like, "Oh, did you see that one? It's like kind of glitching out. Are you going to talk to like the team about that?" I'm like, "I didn't see it. I don't look. Like, I don't look at any of the accounts. You just can't. I can't. But what I can do is I can kind of look at Instagram a little bit, and I've like really dialed down my engagement on there. I used to respond to hundreds of comments, and I really dialed back my engagement, and I very rarely create new content on Instagram. It's basically all reposting existing stuff that's out there. And the reason for that is it's good enough, right? Like I now have a launch pad, and if I maintain the podcast, and we're going to go up to 3 episodes a week, I think, but maintain the podcast, use that, put it into all this other stuff, write the newsletter once a week, the 5 Reps Friday newsletter, and then basically repost Instagram stuff, and that'll grow slowly. And then I build really cool stuff. That's enough. But what I struggle with is what that kind of balance is between like growing an audience, growing a platform, growing a launch pad, and that detracting from, I don't know. I'd even go so far as to call it real work. I mean, I don't think that's the best way to say it, but I don't think it's a bad way to say it.
I don't think you're off base though, because a lot of people, instead of using social media as a means to an end, it is the means and the end. Like that's it. Like I'd rather, as you said before, I'd rather do stuff and then talk about it on social media. It's a much better, because this is my final thought. I don't know if we're at the end of the podcast, but I won't have anything to say after this. Here's my thought. If you're spending all your time doing that, then you're not doing shit that you're talking about. Like, it's just, unless you have a team of professionals churning out. I know a few coaches that probably post 2 very polished reels every single day. And I'm at the point now where I'm feeling like, well, shit, you ain't got no clients, right? Because I can't even picture that. And I'm really good at reels. Like, I'm really good at coming up with an idea. I'm really good at doing things in one take. I'm really good at that. Like, I can, but even, and I only got 23 clients, right? I'm not swimming in clients, but shit, I'm busy, dude. Like, you can't be doing stuff if you're doing that. You're throwing a Hail Mary that somebody's going to see you and say, hey, we want you to be in the internet ad for Cheetos or something, right? And it's not a viable strategy for building a business. And like you said, maybe it was 5 years ago.
I think it might have been 5 years ago. I really do. And perhaps that's kind of where I'm coming from, because like I wrote a book on how to do it. Like, I've sold products on how to do it like 5 years ago, right? 8 years ago. Maybe that's just like me being okay with myself and doing something in my past careers that I no longer agree with. Maybe that's how I'm justifying it to myself. I'm not sure. But it's, I don't know, man. This is why I like podcasts, because podcast to me is just about the only place where you can say, yo, I don't know what the answer is. Like I don't know what the answer is to this question. And I think anybody listening to this podcast will attest, if they've listened to other ones, that this has been much less direct, probably much less directly helpful than a lot of the previous episodes that we've done. And as we were talking, a part of me was like, oh shit, I really feel like we're not doing a good job today. But what I'm thinking about now more than anything is whether or not we did a good job today or not, I'm not sure. I don't know. I'd have to listen back to it. But I do think that we did the topic justice, in that we were honest enough to say, like, things are going to change. Things are going to change fast. I don't think a lot of people are prepared for it. I think the best way to position yourself, knowing what's coming down with deepfakes, with this onslaught of content, where there's going to be such a lack of trust basically all over the place. Is that the human connection is going to be so much more important. God, it's going to get to the point very soon where if you're not shaking hands belly to belly, flesh to flesh,
God,
if you're not,
please don't elaborate.
If you're not with somebody in person, you're not going to be able to trust what you see
Right.
online. And so think about that. And I don't know, let's end it. Let's end it here because my wife and child are trying to come into the apartment.
Well, hopefully both children, not just one.
Hopefully both children. And
You have to.
it's Valentine's Day and it's my wife's birthday tomorrow as well. So I'm gonna go right after this podcast.
Yeah.
But think about I hope after listening to this episode, you kind of like reassess how you're spending your time. And it might mean that like, yo, I'm happy with how I'm spending my time. Right. And that's totally cool. But think about what's coming down the pipeline. Think about all of these conflicting things that are gonna just confuse the hell out of everybody for like a lot of years that are coming up, including you. And think about where you want to spend your time and where you might stand out. I think my book's going to be very well placed when it comes out. I'm excited for it. Okay, well, thank you for listening to the Obvious Choice podcast. And I hope you have a wonderful day.